Nvidia Stock just released its 13F for the first time. This document has a list of the publicly traded stocks that Nvidia owns. With this whole AI craze, it has caused stock prices to jump up dramatically. Today, I want to take a closer look at the list and share the one company that I do own. Should we follow Nvidia and buy these AI stocks? Quick answer, I think the answer is no, but I do believe there's some stuff to learn here. Welcome. For those not familiar, my name is Jose Najarro, and I spent way too much time reading about semiconductors and AI. But thanks to that, my education and work experience, I believe I have created the #1 semiconductor podcast for investors. So let's get started with today's episode. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode. All right, so if you go to NVIDIA's SEC filings, you will be able to find this, which is the 13F. And here on the 13F, we are going to see NVIDIA's stocks that they do own. I do want to tell investors that, hey, look, this is the first time Nvidia has posted this, and within the 13F, you don't necessarily know when was the last time they purchased. Usually when we have 13F from like big firms and stuff like that, what usually happens is some people compare the new one versus the previous one to determine, hey, look, this is where they bought, this is where they sold, this is where they added. But unfortunately, since this is the first time Nvidia reported the 13F, we don't know when they bought this company, when they bought these stocks, right? But here are the 5 companies Nvidia has in their list right now. And we're going to see some of them are super small. We can see Nano X Imaging is roughly valued at $380,000. So we can see some of these are very, very small. We do see some really big ones over the $100 million investments or current value at the moment. So I just wanted to remind everybody that, hey, look, this doesn't mean that they just bought this quarter. They could have bought this multiple years ago. But what I am excited is to see how this kind of evolves over time. Next quarter, how is this going to change? Are they going to add anything? So here we're going to see the first company that we're going to take a closer look at is ARM Holdings. The company owns roughly almost 2 million shares of ARM Holdings. And right now, that's valued at roughly $147 million when they reported this. And for those that are not familiar, NVIDIA was expected to purchase ARMS through an acquisition in 2020, 2021. And unfortunately, that didn't go through for NVIDIA. And when the company came out as an IPO, we did have reports that NVIDIA says it will invest in ARM's IPO after the failed acquisition. So we can see, obviously, if NVIDIA purchased at the IPO, they're up over 100% with the current pricing. So I do want to say, I'm to my best belief, I'm going to guess that most of the ARM holdings that Nvidia has here are come from the IPO investment. I wouldn't have guessed that Nvidia had purchased anytime soon, especially with the crazy run up. First one on the list, if you were to tell me, Jose, would you buy ARM holdings at current levels? My answer is going to be no. This is a stock that we can see in the past month or so is up nearly 92% based on some low floats and based on some crazy AI craze that we are seeing with respect to ARM holdings. Now, the second company on that list, if we are going to take a closer look at, is Nano X Imaging. And we're going to see, I'm only going to take a closer look at the top 4 holdings or the first 4 holdings. The last holdings is actually ending their business here in the United States. So I don't believe there's any reason to take a closer look at that company. So I'm only looking at the top 4 biggest in forms of market cap, which are the first 4 on the list. So the second company here is Nano X Imaging. And we can see Nano X Imaging is much smaller compared to ARM. I mean, ARM is sitting at a market cap of $134 billion. Nano X Imaging right now is roughly $500 million, sitting at $565 million right now. This is one that has kind of seen that Nvidia craze right now, or that Nvidia boost, as after that 13F filing, the stock is up nearly 55%. We're going to look at financials in a bit, but for those that are not familiar with Nano X, it seems like they are a company that focuses on creating image imaging solutions for the healthcare market. For example, they have developed digital x ray sources, enabling a cost reduction of image systems by order of magnitude. What they're pretty much trying to do is bring imaging systems for the global health market and bring it globally, right? They do believe there's a huge problem here with these imaging systems being too expensive, and not everybody having access to them. So, pretty interesting company here in the medical field. Now, luckily for us, like I mentioned, Google is a great place. We did find out that Nano X acquired a company in 2021 called Zebra Medical, and Zebra Medical was funded by several companies, including Nvidia. So, what most likely happened is the reason Nvidia has some shares is when they Nano X acquired that other company, Nvidia received some shares during the acquisition process. We can see this is something that they only own roughly 380,000. Maybe now with the overall stock price jump is probably closer to 500,000. But compare to, like I mentioned, a lot of people's investment, that is probably pretty low. So, and compared to a company that's $1 trillion market cap, that's pretty much chump change. So, nano imaging, definitely a growth story, and we're going to look at financials, but not a reason for me to invest again via Nvidia. Now, the third company that we're going to take a closer look is Recursion Pharmaceuticals, ticker RXRX. And this one we can see is up roughly 12% as I am recording, with a market cap of $2.6 billion. Now, for those that don't follow this channel, this might be new news to you, but we've actually covered RXRX numerous times in this channel, especially back in July of 2023, when we actually saw the $50 million investment from Nvidia to accelerate groundbreaking foundation models in AI-enabled drug discovery. So we can see, and if we take a closer look at the at the 13F filing, we can see Nvidia owns roughly $76 million worth of shares. I do believe it's probably that initial 50 million that has gone up. If we take a closer look back at June, the stock price is up nearly 70%, almost close to 50% prior to this jump up. So that it includes that extra 25 million growth that we saw in there, making it a total of $75 million. So I don't think Nvidia has made any extra purchases of Recursion since their initial investment back in June of 2023. Now, Recursion is actually the only stock that I owned out of this list, and it's a very small position. I do believe we're going to see financials. Recursion is in pre-revenue. They are a clinical stage tech bio company leading the space by decoding biology to industrialize drug discovery. One of the great things about Recursion is they're doing this through sophisticated machine learning algorithms, and they do own one of the most powerful supercomputers in the world. And they are kind of creating large language models based on these, or models for these kind of biotech market to some extent, and I do believe that has huge growth opportunities. At the end of the day, Recursion will always be a position, I believe, that will be no larger than 2%, if that, of my overall portfolio. And if you guys have been following me on the previous episodes and have been following me on Twitter, Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, has actually been on a keynote for the World Government Summit. And one thing there that he mentioned, there was a question that one of the interviewers asked and was like, hey, Jensen, in the future, if you were somebody to start over, what type of education would you take? And he said he was going to go off the norm. Normally, people recommend some form of coding or computer science. But he says, thanks to generative AI, he believes programming to some extent will be more of a human language. So he says that while that is obviously a good market, he believes the best market opportunity in the future is some form of biomedical engineering, some form of life engineering, due to kind of life science and things like biotech evolving over time thanks to this technology. So hearing things like that and kind of seeing this, I do believe Recursion is one of those high risk, high reward probabilities. So I really do enjoy Recursion. This is one that I do have in my portfolio, but again, very small position at the moment. All right, so the final one we're going to look at in the list is SoundCloud. SoundCloud is roughly $3.7 million, nothing too crazy. And we can see Sound is ticker SOUN. Right now, the stock is up roughly 63% thanks to this Nvidia effect, and it has a market cap of roughly $940 million. So SoundHound is actually focusing on conversational AI. They do seem to have a nice amount of voice AI technology to process speech like the human brain. So this one's actually pretty interesting. I'm going to keep a closer eye on this one. Obviously, I'm not going to purchase it right now, but I am to some extent someone who wants to invest in the AI market. And I'm not going to invest in them because Nvidia has invested in them, because that's just not my style. But by seeing this, now I know, hey, look, this is a company that deals in conversational AI. Maybe I should take a closer look at this. Now, based on this article, it seems that Nvidia has been a SoundHound investor back in 2017. So I also wanted to take a closer look at financials for these companies. And before I close out the episode, we'll do that. But first, if you guys are enjoying the episode, make sure to hit the thumbs up, the subscribe button. I want to see if we can hit 35,000 subs by the end of the week. We're about 300 away, and I really do appreciate all the support that I'm getting. Now, we can see, I want to look at first forward 1 year PE ratio. This is pretty much PE ratio within the next 24 months or so. And the only one profitable here to some extent is ARM Holding. So if we take a closer look at year over year growth, we can see Recursion, ticker RXRX, is actually down 22% year over year. But remember, to some extent, this is a pre-revenue company to some extent. So I really wouldn't see too much at these kind of revenue growth rates. Sound is up roughly 18%. ARM is up roughly 13%, and Nano is pretty much flat. We already talked about market cap, but I just wanted to relook at them. We can see ARM is 134 billion, Recursion is 2.7, SoundHound is roughly 968 million, and Nano is roughly 584 million. Now, if we take a closer look at cash and short-term investments versus total long-term debt, I want to say the great thing is all these companies do have more cash or short-term investments than total long-term debt. ARM comes in at 2.4 billion with no debt at all. Then Recursion comes in with 387 million in cash with roughly no debt at all. SoundHound is the only one that has almost a 1-to-1 in forms of cash to total long-term debt, but they still have more cash in hand right now. The final one is Nano X Imaging, which has about 95 million in cash and $3 million in debt, which is pretty much flat debt, right? It's pretty much no debt at all. So overall, fundamentally, they all do have a nice balance sheet, with SoundHound the one with the weakest, in my opinion. Now, I also wanted to take a closer look at estimated revenue growth for the current fiscal year, which is expected to end in roughly 12 months from now. ARM is expected to grow 18.4% in the next 12 months. Recursion is expected to grow 31%. SoundHound is expected to grow 50%, and Nano is expected to grow 16%. So again, if I was to kind of look at this list in the top 4 players, who are the ones I'm really focused on? Like I mentioned, I do believe Recursion has some opportunity. This is one of those high risk, high reward stocks, and I don't mind keeping 1 to 2% in my overall portfolio. So Recursion is one that I'm looking for. This is a very, very volatile stock. We have seen the past 6 months go up and down. So I do believe there's going to be better buying opportunities after this spike. ARM Holdings, like I mentioned, this is one that has gone crazy thanks to the AI market. It's one I would not I would not buy at these levels, but obviously I could be wrong. That's just my overall investment thesis. SoundHound is an interesting one that I don't own, but one that I am curious on and probably will be doing more research on. Nano X Imaging, it's a pretty cool market in my opinion, right? Bringing imaging solutions to the medical field and kind of bringing it globally, but it's not a market that I'm personally too excited about. I'm really focused about generative AI. That's why SoundHound AI is one I wouldn't mind looking into. Like I mentioned, I do believe there's a lot of growth opportunity in the biotech market, and Recursion is definitely one that I can follow, right? It's not just medical. They're doing it through my bread and butter, which is technologies to some extent. And by them having one of the largest supercomputers in the world, I do believe there's some opportunity. It's not a guaranteed winner, but I do believe there's an opportunity there. So I just wanted to share my overall thoughts here on this 13F filing. I would never ever blindly follow Nvidia, even though it's my number one company. But I do believe it brings some eyes to some interesting market. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Take care, have a good day, and see you next time.